There's a mushroom that looks harmless. No warning smell, no obvious bad taste, no instinctive red flag, and yet one of the most dangerous mushrooms in the world can look completely normal. So the real question is, how did ancient humans figure out what was safe to eat? Because they had no chemistry, no poison hotline, no labels, no internet, just hunger. And the answer is not as comforting as people like to imagine. They learned because someone ate the wrong thing first. Picture a small human group, maybe 20 or 30 people, moving into a new valley. Maybe the old place dried up. Maybe animals changed migration routes. Maybe another group pushed them out. Now they are surrounded by roots, berries, nuts, leaves, mushrooms, and insects that all might be food. Some are safe, some are harmful, some are only safe if cooked. Some are fine when ripe, risky when unripe. Some are edible in tiny amounts and dangerous in larger ones. And the worst part? Some of them look almost identical to foods you already trust. So what do? You test the landscape. And in prehistory, testing usually meant one thing. Somebody tries it. If they are fine, the group remembers. If they get sick, the group remembers harder. If they don't make it, the lesson becomes unforgettable. That's probably how a huge amount of human food knowledge began. Not through instinct, not through magic, through trial, observation, and consequences. Over time, those consequences turned into group memory. Not written memory, not scientific memory, social memory. It lived in behavior, in who prepared what, in what the elders refused to touch, in what children were pulled away from, in which foods had to be roasted, soaked, peeled, or avoided entirely. That was the original survival system. Someone tries, everyone watches, the survivors remember. And yes, children were almost certainly part of this process too. Children put things in their mouths, they always have. Ancient humans had no sealed containers, no warning labels, and no emergency service to call after a bad reaction. So adults learn from what children reached for, and sometimes from what happened next. That's grim. But prehistory was full of grim ways to gather information. You might think animals helped solve this problem. Sometimes they did. If a deer consistently avoided a plant, that told you something. If birds ate a berry and flew away fine, that also looked useful. But animals are not reliable test subjects for humans. Different species process toxins differently. Some animals can handle things that would seriously harm a person. So early humans probably made this mistake over and over. An animal eats it. Human copies it. Human regrets it. Animals were clues. They were never proof. That's why the most valuable person in an early group may have been the oldest one. Not because age automatically meant wisdom, because age meant surviving long enough to collect useful information. An elder was a living archive. They remembered which root needed cooking, which fruit was safe only in a certain season, which mushroom looked normal but wasn't, which preparation method turned a risky food into something usable. When an elder died, it wasn't just emotional loss, it was knowledge disappearing, like a library burning down. And once specific lessons outlived the people who discovered them, they often became taboos. A rule like, don't eat that plant, might survive for generations even after the original reason was forgotten. From the outside, that can look irrational, but often it may be old survival data with the explanations stripped away. A taboo can be the fossil of a past disaster, and ancient humans were often much more selective than people assume. Even in environments with many edible species, group often relied heavily on a much smaller number of dependable foods. That doesn't necessarily mean ignorance, it means risk management, because technically edible is a terrible standard if getting it slightly wrong can cause a major problem. Then humans took this knowledge even further. At some point, people didn't just learn which plants were harmful, they started using that danger on purpose. Archaeological evidence from South Africa indicates humans were using toxic plant compounds on arrowheads around 60,000 years ago. That's a massive leap. It means people had moved beyond this hurts us to this can be extracted, handled, and used. This is not random trial and error anymore. That is accumulated, transmitted knowledge. Then fire changed everything again. Cooking didn't just make food softer or tastier, it changed what counted as food in the first place. A plant that made you sick raw might become safe after roasting. A root that was inedible before might become usable after heating or soaking. A seed that was useless might suddenly become calories. Now survival depended not just on knowing what to eat, but how to prepare it. And that preparation knowledge had to be passed down accurately. The same thing likely happened with fermentation. Sometimes stored food went bad and became dangerous. Sometimes it transformed in a way that preserved it and didn't harm anyone. So humans repeated the version that worked. That pattern shows up everywhere in food history. Accident, observation, survival, repeat. Which means the real answer to how did ancient humans know what was safe to eat is actually very simple. At first, they didn't. Somebody tried it, the group watched, the survivors remembered. And over thousands of years, those memories became rules. Those rules became traditions. Those traditions became recipes. And eventually, they became normal food. Every ordinary meal you eat today exists at the end of a very long chain of human experiments, some careful, some accidental, some costly. You are eating the results of ancient trial and error, and a lot of that research was paid for in advance.